The unraveling the champagne flute shattered against the hardwood floor of Zara Chun's downtown loft, sending crystal fragments dancing across the room like fallen stars. She stared at the mess, her hands trembling not from the cold October air, streaming through her open window, but from the rage coursing through her veins. 3 years, she whispered to the empty apartment, her voice cracking. 3 goddamn years. The engagement ring sat abandoned on her kitchen counter, its diamond, catching the afternoon light mockingly. Just hours ago, she'd walked into their favorite coffee shop to surprise her fiancé Marcus with lunch, only to find him locked in a passionate embrace with Becca, her maid of honor. Her college roommate, her supposed best friend. Zara's phone buzzed incessantly on the couch, displaying Marcus's name for the 15th time. She'd stopped answering after the pathetic "I can explain" text that followed his even more pathetic "it just happened" voicemail. 28 years old, and this was her third major heartbreak in 4 years. The universe seemed determined to prove that love was nothing but a cruel joke played on the naive. She kicked at a piece of broken glass, sending it skittering under her photography equipment. Her camera bags lined the wall, witnesses to countless weddings where she'd captured other people's happily ever afters while her own relationships crumbled. The irony wasn't lost on her. A sharp knock interrupted her spiral. "Zara, open up." Jenna's voice carried through the door, followed by the distinct sound of multiple pairs of heels on hardwood. "We know you're in there, and we're not leaving until you let us in," Zara groaned, recognizing the intervention squad. Jenna, her business partner and closest friend since high school, was probably armed with wine and tissues. She'd likely brought backup, probably Chloe from their yoga class, and maybe even Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs, would become an honorary grandmother figure. "I'm fine," Zara called out, her voice betraying the lie. "Just need some space." "Bullshit," came Chloe's blunt response. "You've been fine through David the cheater, fine through Ryan the emotional vampire, and now you're fine through Marcus the backstabber. We're staging an intervention." The lock clicked as Jenna used her spare key. 3 women burst in, like a SWAT team of concern, taking in the broken glass, scattered tissues, and Zara's masochistic face with practiced assessment. Jenna immediately moved to clean up the glass while Chloe headed for the wine cabinet. Mrs. Rodriguez, surprisingly spry for her 72 years, enveloped Zara in a warm hug that smelled like lavender and homemade cookies. Mia, the older woman, murmured, "Enough tears for men who don't deserve the salt in them." "I'm done," Zara declared, pulling away and wiping her eyes. "Completely done. No more dating, no more relationships, no more believing in love. It's all garbage. Chemicals in your brain tricking you into making stupid decisions." Jenna paused in her cleaning, exchanging a look with Chloe. "You don't mean that?" "I absolutely do." Zara's voice grew stronger, more resolute. "Love is a lie we tell ourselves to make the loneliness bearable. I'm 28, I have a successful business, and I don't need anyone else to complete me. From now on, it's just me, my camera, and my work." The declaration hung in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. The collision 2 weeks later, Zara found herself pressed against the elevator wall of the Meridian Tower, Chicago's most exclusive high-rise, wondering how her life had taken such a surreal turn. Jenna had practically dragged her to this networking event, insisting that wallowing in wedding photography while swearing off love wasn't a sustainable business model. "You need corporate clients," Jenna had argued, adjusting Zara's black blazer. "Real estate moguls, tech companies, people who pay invoices on time and don't cry about their ex-boyfriends during shoots." The elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning rooftop terrace illuminated by string lights and the glittering Chicago skyline. Women in designer dresses mingled with men in $1,000 suits, their laughter mixing with the gentle jazz music floating from hidden speakers. Zara immediately felt out of place in her off-the-rack blazer and scuffed heels. "I need a drink," she muttered, making a beeline for the bar, while Jenna dove into networking mode. 3 cosmos later, Zara's initial nervousness had transformed into bitter amusement. She watched the perfectly coiffed crowd with the detached interest of an anthropologist, studying a foreign species. Everyone seemed to be performing some elaborate mating dance of business cards and fake smiles. "This is also artificial," she announced to the bartender, who nodded politely while mixing another drink. "Look at them all pretending to care about each other's quarterly projections when they're really just sizing up bank accounts and social media followings." Her voice had gotten louder than intended, drawing glances from nearby clusters of networkers. The alcohol had loosened her tongue and lowered her filter considerably. "You know what's funny?" she continued, gesturing broadly with her fourth drink. "Everyone here is probably as lonely as I am, but they're too busy performing success too. Admit it." A waiter carrying a tray of champagne flutes approached, trying to navigate around her animated gestures. Zara, midrant about the commodification of human connection, spun around dramatically to make her point and collided directly with him. Time slowed as the tray flew through the air, sending a cascade of champagne and crystal toward a private seating area where several men in expensive suits were deep in conversation. The golden liquid arced through the air like a slow-motion disaster movie, drenching papers, tablets, and most spectacularly, a tall man with dark hair who'd been leaning forward to sign something. The entire terrace fell silent, except for the gentle tinkle of settling glass. Zara stood frozen, watching champagne drip from the man's designer jacket onto what appeared to be very important documents. His companions stared in shock, their expressions ranging from horrified to furious. The man himself slowly looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers across the chaos. "Oh God," Zara breathed, reality crashing through her alcohol-induced bravado. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't," the waiter was, she stumbled forward, grabbing napkins from a nearby table and attempting to help, only to slip on the spilled champagne. Her hands flailed as she tried to catch herself, knocking over a small cocktail table in the process. The man caught her arm, steadying her before she could cause further destruction. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd initially thought, probably early 30s. With olive skin and the kind of bone structure that belonged in magazines, his shirt clung to his chest where the champagne had soaked through, and she caught a whiff of expensive cologne, mixed with Dom Perignon. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice surprisingly calm given the chaos she'd just unleashed. Zara blinked, expecting anger or demands for dry cleaning bills. Instead, she found genuine concern in his dark eyes. "I know, but your papers, your meeting, God, I've ruined everything, haven't I?" One of his companions, a silver-haired man in a navy suit, stepped forward with barely contained irritation. "Dante, we can reschedule." "Clearly it's fine, Richard," the mandanta said, without taking his eyes off Zara. "Accidents happen, but it wasn't fine, and they all knew it." Security was already approaching. Zara could see her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows, mascara smudged, hair disheveled, looking every bit the hot mess she felt inside. Dante Rivera, though she didn't know his name yet, saw something entirely different in her flushed cheeks and mortified expression. In a world of calculated smiles and rehearsed conversations, her genuine distress was refreshingly real. The reluctant connections as Monday morning started with the familiar ritual of coffee and self-loathing, a combination that had become her signature blend since the networking disaster. She'd spent the weekend replaying every mortifying second, wondering if the universe had a personal vendetta against her dignity. Her photography studio, tucked into a converted warehouse in Chicago's Arts District, usually felt like sanctuary. Today it felt like a prison cell where she could hide from her humiliation. She was adjusting lighting for a product shoot when the brass bell above her door chimed. "Closed until 10, she called out, not looking up from her camera settings. "Appointments only. I believe this belongs to you." The voice made her freeze. Deep, calm, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. Slowly, she turned around and found herself face to face with the man she'd drenched in champagne 3 nights ago. He looked different in daylight, less formal in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater, but no less intimidating. Her camera bag, the vintage leather one her grandmother had given her for graduation. "How did you?" she started, then stopped, remembering. In her panicked attempt to help clean up, she must have left it behind when security escorted her out. "Dante Rivera," he said, extending his free hand. "And you're Zara Chen, according to the business cards in your bag." She stared at his outstretched hand, acutely aware of her paint-stained apron and the fact that she hadn't brushed her hair properly. "I'm so sorry about Friday night. Been meaning to call and offer to pay for your dry cleaning, or your papers, or therapy for your business associates who look like they might have PTSD. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "They'll survive." Though Richard did suggest I hire a food taster for future meetings. Despite herself, Zara laughed a real laugh that surprised them both. "God, I really made an impression, didn't I? What were you guys celebrating anyway? Please tell me it wasn't a Nobel Peace Prize or something equally important that I destroyed. Just a merger. Nothing that can't be reprinted." He stepped further into the studio, his eyes scanning the photographs lining the walls. Wedding portraits, engagement sessions, families frozen in moments of joy. "Your work?" Unfortunately, she followed his gaze, seeing her photographs through his eyes. "Well, the good ones are mine. The mediocre ones are. It's also mine, but I pretend. My assistant took those." He paused in front of a black and white image of an elderly couple dancing in their kitchen, completely lost in each other despite the ordinary setting. "This is beautiful. You captured something real here." Zara studied his profile as he examined her work. There was something almost hungry in the way he looked at the photographs, as if he were searching for something he'd lost. "You sound surprised that something real could be beautiful. In my world, real is usually ... complicated. Messy people spend a lot of energy making things look perfect instead of actually being perfect." He turned back to her. "That night, watching you apologize to every waiter guest and potted plant on that terrace was the most genuine thing I'd seen in months. Genuine disaster, maybe. Genuine humanity." His expression grew serious. "Do you know who I was? Meeting with that night?" "Us." Zara shook her head, though something in his tone made her stomach flutter with anxiety. "Investors for my company, Rivera Tech Solutions. We develop software for Fortune 500 companies. That dinner was supposed to close a $40 million deal." The color drained from her face. "Oh no. Oh God, please tell me I didn't cost you $40 million. I'll pay it back, I swear. It might take me several lifetimes and I'll have to sell organs. But, Zara..." He stepped closer and she caught that same expensive cologne from Friday night. The deal closed the next morning. Apparently Richard was so entertained by the evening's events that he decided I was refreshingly unpredictable for a tech CEO. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by confusion. "And why are you here?" Dante was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "I have a proposition. My company is launching a new campaign. We want to move away from sterile corporate imagery, something more ... authentic. Human. You want to hire me?" The words came out as a squeak. "I want to hire the woman who created this." He gestured to the dancing couple photograph. "Someone who sees beauty in real moments instead of manufactured perfection." Zara's mind raced. A corporate contract with a tech company could change everything's steady income, creative freedom, respect in the industry. But something in his expression suggested this wasn't just about business. "What's the catch?" she asked, crossing her arms. "No catch, just ... Don't change who you are for the camera." His smile was soft, almost vulnerable. "The world has enough perfect pictures. What it needs is more truth." As he handed her his business card, their fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her, a spark she hadn't felt since. Well, since before she'd sworn off feeling anything at all. "Think about it," he said, heading toward the door. "And Zara? That night at the Meridian? It was the best networking event I've ever attended." The breakthrough 6 weeks into working with Rivera Tech Solutions. Zara had developed a complicated relationship with Monday mornings. They meant seeing Dante again, which her practical mind insisted was purely professional, while her traitorous heart performed small acrobatics whenever his name appeared on her calendar. She'd been photographing his employees for the company's humanization. Campaign-candid shots of developers collaborating. Genuine laughter in break rooms. The kind of authentic moments that made tech companies seem less like soulless corporations. But today was different. Today, Dante had reluctantly agreed to let her photograph him. "I hate having my picture taken," he admitted. Adjusting his tie for the third time as they stood in his corner office, overlooking Lake Michigan. "Everyone says that," Zara replied, checking her camera settings. "Usually what they mean is they hate how they look in bad photographs." "No, I mean I'd literally hate it. There's something about being reduced to a single moment, a fraction of a second that's supposed to represent who you are." He moved to the window, his shoulders tense. "It feels dishonest." Zara lowered her camera, studying him. Over the past month and a half, she'd learned to read his moods, the way he ran his hand through his dark hair when frustrated, how his accent became more pronounced when he was passionate about something, the fact that he took his coffee black but always offered cream to others first. "Tell me about your first company," she said instead of raising the camera. He glanced at her, surprised. "That's not relevant to the shoot. Humor me." Dante was quiet for a long moment, then began speaking to the window rather than to her. "I was 22, fresh out of MIT, convinced I was going to revolutionize social media. Built this platform that was supposed to connect people more authentically, no filters. No editing, just raw, real moments." Zara lifted her camera silently. As he continued, his reflection in the window showing a vulnerability she'd never seen before. It failed spectacularly. Not because the technology wasn't good, but because people didn't want authenticity. They wanted the illusion of perfection. They wanted to curate their lives, not live them. His voice grew bitter. "So I learned to give people what they wanted instead of what they needed." Click. The shutter captured him in profile, lost in memory. His usual polished exterior cracked, just enough to show the idealistic young man underneath. "Is that why you hired me?" she asked softly. "Because I'm a walking disaster who can't curate anything properly?" He turned from the window and she caught something raw in his expression before he could mask it. "I hired you because you see people the way I used to before I learned it was naive. Maybe you were right the first time." "Maybe." He moved closer, and she could smell his cologne mixed with coffee and something uniquely him. "Can I ask you something? That night at the Meridian, you were angry about more than just networking events. What happened?" Zara's finger hovered over the shutter release. "My fiancé left me for my best friend. 3 years together, and he threw it away for someone who laughed at all his jokes and never challenged him to be better." Click. She captured his reaction, not pity, but understanding, recognition. "How long ago? The day before I met you, actually. I was drunk on cosmos and cynicism, convinced that love was just a chemical delusion designed to make us do stupid things, and now." The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither seemed ready to address. Zara lowered her camera, meeting his eyes directly. "I think maybe I was half right. Love makes us do stupid things. But maybe, ... quotes, she hesitated, then pushed forward. Maybe the stupid things are worth it if they're with the right person." Dante's phone buzzed urgently against his desk, shattering the moment. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. "What is it?" Zara asked. "Richard Blackstone, the investor from that night." His voice was tight. "He's pulling out of the merger. Something about discovering irregularities in our financial projections." Zara watched as the vulnerability disappeared behind his professional mask. "What does that mean?" "Means Rivera Tech Solutions might not exist by Friday." He was already reaching for his jacket, his mind shifting into crisis mode. "I will sorry, Will. Have to reschedule." Zara grabbed his arm as he headed for the door. "What if he's not pulling out because of financial irregularities?" Dante paused. "What do you mean?" "You said he was entertained by our disaster at the Meridian. What if he liked the authenticity, but now he's seeing the same polished corporate presentation everyone else gives him?" She gestured to the sterile office around them. "What if instead of trying to convince him you're perfect, you showed him you're real?" For a moment, she saw the young entrepreneur who'd wanted to revolutionize authenticity flicker back to life in his eyes. "That's either brilliant," he said slowly, "or the fastest way to lose everything I've built. Sometimes they're the same." He looked at her for a long moment, then did something that surprised them both. He laughed, really laughed, the sound echoing off the glass walls of his office. "You know what? Let's find out." The new beginning, the emergency investor meeting, took place in Rivera Tech's main conference room. but it looked nothing like the sterile corporate presentations Richard Blackstone was used to. Instead of polished PowerPoint slides, the walls were lined with Zara's photographs, real moments of employees working, laughing, solving problems together. The financial projections were printed on regular paper rather than embossed portfolios. And Dante had traded his armor-like business suit for jeans and the sweater he'd worn to her studio. Zara sat in the corner with her camera, officially there to document the meeting, but really there because Dante had quietly admitted he needed her steady presence. She watched him present not just numbers and growth projections, but the story of why he'd started his company, the idealistic 22-year-old who'd believed technology could make human connections more authentic. The irregularities you found in our projections, Dante said, meeting Richard's skeptical gaze directly. They're there because we've been reinvesting profits into employee development and community programs instead of maximizing shareholder returns. It's not the smartest financial decision, but it's the right one. Richard leaned back in his chair, studying the photographs on the walls. And you think this authenticity approach is viable long-term? I think people are starving for real connections in a world full of artificial ones, Dante replied. Our employee retention is 93%. Our client satisfaction scores are through the roof. We're not just building software, building relationships. Zara raised her camera as Richard stood and walked to one of her photographs, the dancing elderly couple from her studio wall. She'd included it in the display at Dante's request, even though it had nothing to do with his company. This is beautiful, Richard said quietly. It reminds me of my grandparents. They were married 62 years, and they still danced in their kitchen every Sunday morning. Zara captured the moment of recognition, the softening in Richard's expression as he remembered something real from his own life. That's exactly what we're trying to create, Dante said. Moments that matter, connections that last. The meeting ended with a handshake and Richard's commitment to not just continue the merger, but to increase the investment. As the conference room emptied, Zara found herself alone with Dante, the afternoon sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I can't believe that worked, he said, loosening his tie with hands that trembled slightly from adrenaline. I can. Zara set down her camera and moved closer. You stopped trying to be what you thought he wanted and started being who you actually are. Is that your professional opinion, Miss Chen? That's my personal observation, Mr. Rivera. They stood facing each other in the empty conference room, the weight of everything unspoken settling between them. 6 weeks of working together, of carefully maintained professional boundaries, pretending neither of them felt the electricity that sparked whenever they were in the same room. Zara, Dante said quietly, I need to tell you something. Her heart rate picked up. Okay, that night at the Meridian? When you crashed into my life like a beautiful disaster, I went home and couldn't stop thinking about you. Not because you were drunk or chaotic, but because you were the first real thing I'd encountered in years. Dante, I know you swore off love. I know you think it's all chemicals and delusion, and maybe you're right. He stepped closer, close, enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. But what if you're wrong? What if sometimes love isn't about fairy tales and perfect moments, but about finding someone who sees you clearly and chooses you anyway? Zara's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of believing in something that might disappear. So am I, he admitted. But I'm more scared of missing this whatever this is, because I was too afraid to try. She looked at him, this brilliant, complicated man who'd hired her, not despite her chaos, but because of it, who'd risked his company on authenticity because she'd challenged him to remember who he used to be, who saw beauty in her worst moments, and possibility in her brokenness. I don't know how to do this, she said. I don't know how to trust again. Neither do I, Dante replied, reaching out to gently cup her face. But maybe we can figure it out together. When he kissed her, it wasn't like the movies. There were no fireworks or swelling orchestras. Instead, it was quiet and sure, like coming home after a long journey. It tasted like coffee and possibility, like taking a leap of faith and finding solid ground beneath your feet. 6 months later, Zara would photograph their first official date, not posed or perfect, but laughing over spilled wine at a tiny Italian restaurant where Dante had been too nervous to eat properly. A year later, she'd capture the moment he met her parents, his usual confidence replaced by endearing awkwardness as her father grilled him about his intentions. But in that conference room, with the Chicago skyline stretching endlessly beyond the windows, Zara learned that love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone real, someone who saw your chaos and called it beautiful, who caught you when you fell and helped you stand stronger than before. She'd sworn off love because she thought it meant losing herself. Instead, she discovered that real love meant finding herself reflected in someone else's eyes and liking what she saw there. Some stories don't end with fairy tale weddings or dramatic declarations. Sometimes they end with two broken people choosing to heal together, building something authentic from the wreckage of their past mistakes. Sometimes love is less like a lightning strike and more like sunrise, gradual, inevitable, and impossibly beautiful once you stop running from the light.